I'm back. So one of the things that we did on Sunday was a Q&A, and Susan Niedt, licensed practitioner at Center for Spiritual Living, Princeton, had some questions for me. And I was not prepared. I did not see the questions, and so we did a very spontaneous Q&A, and I asked her to send me the questions. I have them here. Now I know that I think they were a little different, but because she was so spontaneous and organic, but I will do my best to answer these questions. And if you end up having a question after you watch this live stream, let me know. I'm very willing to share. I love questions, and I love being asked questions, and I'm an open book. So, and if I don't want to answer a question, then I won't. So the first question she asked is, what led you to this path? How did you hear the calling? How did you know? Well, I was raised Catholic in the Netherlands. It wasn't so traumatic, but I, from a very young age, didn't quite believe what I was taught. Especially didn't believe I was a sinner. So I had a very magical relationship with spirit without knowing that's what it was. I would be outside and look at nature and just be mesmerized. I remember one time, and I shared this on Sunday, I found a worm coming out of the ground, a big juicy worm, and I took it, and I was mesmerized, and I ran inside the house, and I said, "Mom, look!" And she went, "Get away from me!" And I was like shocked. And so I always felt that, and nothing in my life, and I've had plenty of challenges, ever made me turn away from that, made me lose that. So I always felt this magical connection, and I was curious, very curious. I have some old journals that I would write down quotes of famous people that were spiritual quotes or religious quotes, and I would sit and read them and think about them, and I was so passionate about all this. And then when I came to the United States, I was exposed to Centers for Spiritual Living in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I think it was 1982. And I remember walking into the center, and it was like I was home. I know lots of people feel that way when they come to our communities. I felt like I was home. I couldn't believe there was a way of thinking that was like mine. And my teacher was brilliant teacher, Dr. Bill Tolliver. He was rough around the edges, but he was a great teacher. And I needed a teacher that was rough around the edges, because otherwise I would have just gone to sleep, right? So he challenged me, but he challenged me to look at my own beliefs and my own thoughts. Because sometimes what happens is when we're in a spiritual community, we become needy and we want attention from the spiritual director. We want their acknowledgement. We want their love. We're looking for mommy or daddy, right? And we can very quickly be disappointed or hurt or judge or turn away. And yet that becomes such grist for the mill. And so I learned to look at all the things I needed from him and what he triggered in me as a way to grow and expand my own consciousness and heal as well, using the principles of the teaching and using spiritual mind treatment and working with the practitioners. So Dr. Bill really was the influence for me to continue studying, and I arrived at this place of taking ministerial training, and the most logical thing was to lead a community, but because my self-esteem was kind of low, I was like, I can't do that. But it was a natural thing, a natural progressive to go from one thing to the next. So study, become a licensed practitioner, then I became a minister, and then I was a staff minister in Fort Lauderdale, and then I candidated and I was a spiritual director in Albany, New York, which was very challenging for me because I wasn't ready and I wasn't prepared. But again, it was a wonderful ground of experience that taught me so much. And then 3 years later, in 1992, I arrived in Morristown, and that's been a really amazing experience with lots of changes that the community has gone through, but so has the world. So I'm sure it's true for everyone in every community. All right, how and when to serve? Oh, that's kind of the same question. Yeah, kind of answered that. What gifts and talents were revealed to you during your ministry? Well, I shared on Sunday that I wasn't quite prepared for leading a community. I was a tough cookie. I used another word, being from the Netherlands, we are very direct. We say it like it is, honest and direct, and we can just let it go. Don't take things as personally. In this culture, it's very different. People take things more personally. It's not as easy to be direct, so I've had to soften that. And I know there were times where I hurt people's feelings with my directness and with my demands and with my expectations. So those are things I've had to really soften. And I truly did learn that we can, catch more bees with honey than vinegar, just that it's important to love and support and guide and not be mean, even though it was never, ever, ever my intention. And so I think I also learned to create community by making sure I'm not put on a pedestal. I never wanted to be put on a pedestal. I'm human, I'm imperfect, I have weaknesses and strengths, and I always felt that my leadership skills weren't that strong, but ministry, teaching, counseling, speaking, all that I feel very strong in and very confident in and very comfortable with. So those are gifts I cultivated, because when I first was to do public speaking, I was a wreck. Days before with diarrhea and the day of just so nervous. And now it's something I'm very, very comfortable with, and I feel deeply guided from within. So I believe that's another gift and talent, is that I truly use inner guidance, and I really trust that. I have a funny example that happened just the other day that's not profound, and it's not so much related to leadership, but I had ordered a book at the library months ago, because it was a brand new book, Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. And something told me to check with the library. So I called them and I said, where am I in the hold list? And they said, it's here. And this is your last day of hold. So normally I get a phone call, but I didn't. So here is something of what happens when we cultivate our intuition. We are guided from within. And that happens so much. And so much when it comes to leadership as well. I would say the idea, coming back to that, is the idea of shared leadership, because everybody has a gift and talent to share, and to find out what people's gifts and talents are and invite them to share it so they can thrive. So we know we cannot ask someone to give a gift they don't have. So it's really looking at what their gifts are and inviting them to share them. Since becoming a minister, how have you changed? How has your relationship to the teaching changed? Oh my, how have I changed? Wow, I am just not the same person. I would say the biggest changes are changes in self-esteem, loving myself. That's a big one, loving myself. I hated myself and didn't even know it. So loving myself, being authentic and not being afraid to be authentic, because I had so much shame, so I had to hide a lot. I couldn't fully express myself. Cultivating creativity and being confident with creativity, whether it's arts and craft or creating a workshop or a talk or being of service. Confidence then, joy, and being silly, which used to be like shame too, but now I'm like goofy and silly. And I would say a depth of surrender and faith that is beyond measure. And that's really the mystical path of the mystical side of the science mind, because it has also led me to Sufism in a way that I truly feel a direct experience of God, Spirit, the universe. And it's very alive, it's very present. I truly feel it all the time. And that wasn't always true, because I had a lot of questions and some anger, some frustration. And so related to ministry, it's really about knowing that what I have to give is very rich and very powerful. And I find that I really love to work with people who are really wanting to do this work, wanting to heal, wanting to grow. And when I do, there's just so much beauty and grace and joy that happens, and it's so powerful to witness that kind of healing. All right, the relationship to the teaching, yes, I would say that it has become more embodied. It's become more personal. It's not just something I read and study and see. It's become alive through me, and I practice it all the time. What error of thought as a minister do you struggle with most? And what practice supports your shifting the truth? I don't think she asked that question on Sunday. I would say the thing I've struggled with the most and has shifted the most only this year is the core belief that I have carried as long as I can remember of not being enough. Not being enough, feeling I don't do enough, feeling I don't have enough, this idea of lack and scarcity and inadequacy. I know I'm not alone with this. I know it's a very common core belief, right? And it makes me sad now to say, really? I believe that? And I live my life from that place? Of course, it wasn't conscious, it was mostly unconscious. But to unravel that and work with that and truly understand that the enoughness of spirit itself, the abundance of spirit itself, is already within me, and to discover it and to feel it and to experience it. And so that is the biggest shift. What aspect of our teaching, Science of Mind, speaks to you the most? I think I share that. It's really the mystical aspect of the teaching. So for me, that is The Voice Celestial by Ernest Holmes and Fenwick Holmes. Your Invisible Power, one of the first books by Ernest Holmes. And I love the meditations in the back of the Science of Mind textbook. Those are rich and beautiful and so filled with light and truth. And so mysticism is about a direct experience of God. And to me, that's what that brings me. So it's less heady for me, less intellectual, and more heart, more experience. How do you explain your relationship to God, to Spirit? That question kind of silenced me, because how can I put that into words? It's a feeling of deep intimacy, deep connection with a richness beyond measure, with a joy and a sense of wholeness and a sense of freedom and a sense of peace. It's very filled with grace and glory. I think I shared it was pretty sexy. It's just so pure, and the beauty is that I know I've only touched a snippet of it, that there is so much more. So life is about opening to the good, opening to the more, opening to the truth. So I love these questions, and I'm sure there would be more by now. And I'm sure some of you might have some questions, and I'm always open to hearing. This was fun for me. I truly imagined that you're all here in this room, and I'm glad I got to do this today, because now I feel complete with doing this over. So let me close with a spiritual mind treatment, our word for affirmative prayer for all of us. So I do it in the I am, the I, the my, the me, which is the truth within each and every one of us. So right here, right now, as I take a moment to close my eyes and withdraw my attention from the outer world, even though it's a camera and a room that feels beautiful and has chairs in it, as I close my eyes, I immediately feel the beating of my heart. And I know that this is just a teeny tiny representation of the beating of the universal heart in my heart. And it beats with utter predictability, with utter certainty, with the deepest grace, the deepest love, the deepest joy, the deepest peace, the deepest harmony. And I receive it completely and totally. It is irresistible. It fills my heart, my mind, my body, my soul, my life, and I see life and experience life completely differently. Everything that is not in alignment with it or appears not to be in alignment with it now dissolves. And I say yes to this glorious life that is about my evolution, that is about discovering the sacred gift of my spirit and my soul. It is about service to humanity by means of my life, my healing, my revealing, my truth discovery, my joy. And so even when there is darkness, I can see it as an invitation to not just look for the light and be the light and see the light within myself, but to know that the darkness itself is fruitful and is a blessing and a gift to my evolution. And so I am just filled with awe and wonder and gratitude and curiosity. What's next? What else? What's more? What wants to happen through me, for me, in me, as me, with me? And so I turn this word over to the universal law, and I know it shall demonstrate it for my highest and best. And so it is, and so it shall forever be.